Welcome to the Art Bazaar, a podcast that chats with artists of all types to explore the depths of creativity, brought to you by the Alternative Gallery. We'll be releasing new episodes every Wednesday with bonus episodes dropping randomly. If you like what you're hearing, you can support this podcast by going to thealternativegallery.com and clicking on the podcast tab. I'm your host, Brandon Wonder, creative director of the Alternative Gallery, a nonprofit arts organization in Allentown, PA, run through the efforts of dedicated volunteers. Today in Art Bazaar, we'll be chatting with artists Emily and David, co-owners of Rugged Imperfections, an independent company that creates custom-ordered, handmade tufted rugs. In addition to offering customized pieces, Rugged Imperfections often collaborates with artists to bring their designs to life in a totally different medium. Emily and David run the company from their studio here at the Cigar Factory, where Emily first started as a studio artist working in graphic design before expanding into this new medium. You can view their work and, of course, place an order by visiting their Instagram, rugged_imperfections. Emily and David, welcome to the Art Bazaar.
Thank you.
Thank you.
How you feeling?
Feeling pretty great.
You excited to be here?
Yeah,
Feeling
definitely.
amazing.
So you've been here, was it 2 years, 3 years now?
It's been 3 years. Yeah, right? Like during the pandemic. So it was a weird time to enter, but I'm glad I did.
You came at the oddest of times,
Yes.
in the depths of the pandemic, only about, 6 months into it.
Yeah.
There was no one here, and I remember trying to convince you, no, things actually used to happen here just because this weird situation we're in that we can't do anything, and we actually didn't have any events or anything here for 2 years. So the first 2 years that Emily was here, we couldn't do anything.
Yeah, for a while I really was convinced I was the only artist in this building.
Yep.
But since then, I've definitely met a bunch of people through this space, and I'm very excited about it.
That was a strange time for us. Obviously a transition phase, as it was for a lot of the world, where some people were staying home, a lot of artists moved away or decided to bag it because they didn't have the resources to keep it going. But now that things have sprung back to life, what has been your experience overall here at the Alternative Gallery and Cigar Factory? What's it been like?
Well, it's been really great just connecting with a bunch of new people and just being a part of the community, because that's what I really was striving for during COVID. I felt like super isolated and felt like I was like the only person my age doing what I was doing at that time. And then even being here, being the only person for a little bit, I kind of still felt that way. But now, after being here for a few years and getting to meet a bunch of people who started this space, I definitely know there's so many more people out there like me, and I'm excited to meet everyone.
Absolutely. And David, what was your first take when you walked in this building? What did you see?
First off, I was just taken away with how the inside of the building actually looked. It's the artist's paradise that you would think of to be an artistic studio. And it was odd that it was a ghost town, because looking around, I was like, how? How could this not be the mecca of art for Allentown? But as we kept going, like Emily said, we ended up meeting a whole bunch of just incredibly talented, creative individuals. And it's just been an experience for sure.
Great. Yeah, and throughout the chat, we'll definitely highlight some of the stories and things that you want to talk about that stand out to you. I'm curious, though, Emily, how did you get started with art to begin with?
That's a loaded question for sure.
I love loaded questions of the best kind.
One of my first memories of art, I would say, I was around like 4 or 5, and my aunt at the time, who was watching me throughout the day, she noticed that I was drawing next to a coloring book, and she thought I was tracing it. And so one day she sat down with me and actually watched me just look back and forth and draw what I was seeing and replicating it. And she was like, wow, you can draw. And that was one of the first memories I have of being encouraged to continue drawing. So ever since then, I feel like if it wasn't for like the encouragement of other creative people in my family, and then pursuing it in school and having teachers also encourage that, I don't know if I would have been at this point with art that I am now.
Interesting, because I think you have an experience that's quite opposite a lot of working artists have, where they were discouraged.
That's very true, yeah.
Are you aware of maybe some friends that have been discouraged but punched through, kept it going?
Yeah, I feel like that's totally the theme. Your parents don't want you to be an artist, or like don't want you to go down that path, but both my parents were pretty creative and definitely encouraged that in me. And honestly didn't have much of an expectation of me to go to college. So I luckily got to choose an art path.
Well, I'm curious, and either one of you can answer this. Why do you think it is so many parents try to talk their kids out of doing art? Like, what reasons are there behind that?
I really feel like we just don't appreciate art in the same way that European countries do, in the sense of seeing it as a career or a way that you can make money. But that's not the point of art at the end of the day. And
It's
I feel like
part
a lot
of life.
Exactly.
It's a commercial art, but yeah, other truer, deeper forms of art, 100% agree with you.
Exactly.
You have any more thoughts behind that?
Like I was saying about the appreciation aspect, me and Emily went to Greece last August, and that was my first time out the country, and just seeing the fusion of art and life in just everything, everyday life. You couldn't go anywhere without seeing something artistic or a piece of art, and it meant something to somebody. And around here, it's rare to see that, or see something that would really strike you and make you feel something.
Were you in any specific cities in Greece that were major, or just even the little villages were like this?
Even the little villages where we stayed for like 3 days or something like that, and everywhere.
Yeah, it's definitely in the architecture everywhere. The place that we stayed at was just like a little cottage space, and looking at the floor, like the tiles, they just had evil eyes integrated in everything. Walking out into buildings, mosaics you see everywhere. It's a part of their culture and their everyday life. And while it is here like that in America, it's not encouraged the way that it could.
You know, and I think what we find in America is when we do have any kind of creative hubs, they're very isolated, or maybe only big cities. Yes. Like, for example, I just went to New York City yesterday, and which I used to live for a few years before coming back here to Allentown. And, you know, New York is amazing because you just, any random block you walk down, there could be random stores. I mean, even churches we would stop in, check out the stained glass, which I love stained glass a lot. And then you come back to a city like Allentown, and you're like, what the fuck am I doing here?
Right.
Like, and that's why I asked you that question, because of course New York would have a deep offering of art and culture, but why does it have to only be epicenters?
Right.
Why can't we have this? It doesn't matter what. I almost think that the smaller the town, the more offbeat and odd the art should be.
Yeah.
Right? But that doesn't seem to be the case. They seem to have kind of an absence of art. I know you've done some other traveling based on your travels. Are there any other places in the United States that you see doing it right or better that maybe we can reflect on and look at?
Well, really, like David said, that was his first time out of the country. And the reason we went to Greece is because I studied abroad there and studied specifically art. And that's kind of like the trip that actually inspired me to focus on studio art, just because of the way that I was taught differently. So I feel like even there is a good way, like you're taught differently from the jump. So while it's here, it's like, oh yeah, you can take this extra class or this can be a special. It's no, you're going to take art. You're going to learn how to draw. It just is a skill, just like any other life skill.
To add to that, a different experience for a place in the United States. I grew up in Virginia, in Richmond area, Virginia. And in my last years at VCU, I went to so many art events, random pop-ups at a random bar, just anything. It's the businesses were also willing to put in a share for the artists. And that's what really makes a difference, because we have to fight tooth and nail to get something artistically done in Allentown. But in Richmond, Virginia, there is a swap meet that is huge every single Sunday. And it's a consistent thing for people.
You know, since we're on the subject of Allentown, you know, and I this podcast isn't so much just about Allentown, but I like to use Allentown as a case study because I'm very familiar with it. I understand it to, I would say, some pretty great depths, and it helps me analyze what works and doesn't work. But in your opinion, why aren't things working here creatively? Why don't artists stay in Allentown?
I don't know, just from being in other states, I think that for whatever reason, Pennsylvania is like super old school. Like the same people have been owning the same businesses, like families has been owning the same things over and over again, that it's like, okay, well, we haven't had that before. We haven't taken chances on independent artists before. So why start doing it now? Let's just continue to use the same whatever that city center provides us, and we'll just stick with that like every other business is doing. And they don't see the like actual value. They think it's taking a risk when it's really going to just be mutually beneficial.
What do you think, David?
I really feel like, again, the appreciation aspect, because they see that art is something that can be profitable for sure, or just make your city seem more appealing, but they're not really thinking about the artist that they put onto these projects. It's the lack of opportunities that they choose to give local artists rather than outsourcing for a huge mural that could have been a whole collective piece of a whole bunch of just the heart of Allentown arts.
Do you think they're chasing what's trendy?
I really do.
I also think saying they're outsourcing, that means that they think that there are more established, and they just assume like, oh, let's just get someone from New York City, let's just get someone from Philly, because these are already the established art areas. So they have the established artist, where that exists here. We have those independent artists that are very established people that have the means to do exactly what they're outsourcing, but they don't themselves put themselves in that position to actually notice it.
I think a big part of the issue is the people making these choices have never tried to survive as an artist.
Yes.
Yeah, that's definitely a huge one too. Looking at the art commission board, they just own property. That's what a lot of it is. Like, they just own property, but they don't really know how to manage it.
They have status, but they don't have credentials to actually be running something this creative, that should be this creative, and it's not a business per se.
Absolutely. The Arts Commission has been unfortunately stacked with executives for a number of years, and that's in the process of changing, which is great. And I think what happened was the powers that be that make these choices for so long just did whatever they wanted with no one pushing back. Mm-hmm. I think they assumed they can just do these things and nobody would really care. And they found out that wasn't the case, didn't they?
Yes,
yes,
indeed.
they did.
The artists finally had it, and we banded together, and we're like, enough is enough. You act like we don't exist. Here we are, and we need your support. And I think, these artist takeovers and these meetups we've been doing have been incredibly empowering for me, because number one, it shows you how many artists actually exist right here in your backyard. Mm-hmm. And number two, the collective bargaining power we have when we pull our resources and come together in numbers. We're not just on our own. And that's a big part of why this podcast is here, is we want to share these experiences. We want to encourage people to create art, because so many people, they're stuck. Like, how do you take that first step?
Right.
Emily, how do you recommend an artist takes their first step to becoming an artist in a city that might be like Allentown, where they don't have a lot of resources?
I definitely just recommend getting involved. I feel like if I didn't know much about the alternative gallery before coming here, but realizing just being here and showing up, like how far that goes. So I tell everyone, you're not experienced, you don't know what you're doing, like just showing up will definitely make you the connections that you need and take you the places that you want to go.
Absolutely. I have had countless people ask me over the years how to get involved with things we're doing, and I tell them, be here.
Yeah.
Show up. It's as simple as that. You can't. Yep. And people are like, oh, it's like there's some complicated answer. There's not.
Yeah, there's no long application. You don't got to pay. Like, just show up.
Just be there, get involved, and all of a sudden things are happening.
Mm-hmm.
You just got to care.
Absolutely. You started as a graphic designer, Emily. How did you segue from a graphic designer to working in a very different medium of art?
Yeah. Like I said, I was always encouraged in art, whether that was like teachers or family. And since I just kind of put the pressure on myself to go to college, I was like, well, the only thing I know that I'm good at is art. So I related that graphic design was like the only way I could make art and make a career out of it, because that is something that they definitely sell you. And I mean, it is almost true. It's more like going for the security aspect. Like, businesses are going to need it. The commercial, the advertising, like that's everything now, social media. But I found myself not enjoying that part of it. So throughout schooling, my favorite part was the studio classes, the painting classes, the drawing, the actual hands-on part of the art, that my teachers are like, yeah, you're always like bordering the line of a studio artist and a graphic artist, because I honestly like stayed away from technology. I don't like being on my computer and using the programs. When it did come to the programs, I wanted to do the digital drawing and like actually do using my hand to make physical art. And I found that part isn't as profitable as learning Illustrator, being proficient in Photoshop, and when I tried to do those things, I was not having a fun time. So I did try. I'll give myself that. I tried getting and being successful in a career with graphic design. And even in that job, I found myself always trying to do drawings, and they wanted me. They're like, no, like we want more corporate-y designs. And I kept trying to push the line, kept trying to push it. And to the point where I kind of just did some freelance work for them to now where I'm just not really doing much graphics other than for our business.
So you're kind of putting to bed the corporate art then?
Oh, yeah. I remember like actually a specific thing when I was putting art in my portfolio, my senior portfolio, I had some digital art pieces in there that were a little, I guess my professor was calling them risky to put in there because she said, if a corporate employer were to look at this, they wouldn't hire you. And I was like, okay, that's fine. Like, I don't want that job. That's actually why I curated my portfolio to be more illustrated.
Correct. You're trying to be an artist, not impress fucking HR.
Yes, exactly. So I found out kind of real quick that I just, as much as I did okay in graphic design, I didn't see it as a lifelong career.
Interesting. And you know what? Kudos to you for making that decision so early on. A lot of artists were like, I'm going to continue this path because it's bringing in the money, but once it is no longer fulfilling, that the reason, that spark that makes you love that art to begin with, it does go away.
Oh, definitely.
And for some people, they can never get it back.
Yeah. Once I start to dislike something, it's very easy for me to just be like, yeah, no, this is not my thing. It's not my jam. And that's what I did with this. I also sort of had like imposter syndrome because I feel like while my professors felt like they prepared me for things, I kind of was just learning my own skills. And the skills I was learning was more of the drawing, the painting, the studio art. And I was neglecting the coding, the back end of website, the stuff that I hated doing. And I was like, well, that's where the actual money is. They want you to learn how to code. They want you to do the website. And that's the part that I'm not confident in. So if I'm not confident in it and I'm not enjoying it, then what is the point?
It's funny you mentioned imposter syndrome because I know a lot of artists more and more seem to be talking about how they thought they had that, where basically they were convinced they couldn't get anything done. But I think that's kind of more, I don't know, is that more of an internal thing or an external thing? Is that society making us feel that way in addition to our self-doubts?
Yes, I would definitely say so. I think David has that just a little bit in the sense of when we were just trying to write this bio, he wanted to not mention the fact that he doesn't have a lot of experience in art. And I was like, don't mention that. That's not the point here. The point is that you decided, you were interested in the creative process. You got your hands on it. And now you're sketching every day, coming up with new ideas for rug designs. You are an artist. So don't downplay that.
Absolutely. And there's lots of ways to do it. You don't have to just prepare forever and finally get to it. Some people just jump in and here you are.
Right.
In a lot of ways, that's more admirable.
Right.
True.
I agree. Yeah. So I think, imposter syndrome is definitely different for everyone, but I would say...
So artists that are dealing with it, what do you say they do in order to maybe stop feeling that way?
Well, I would definitely just say taking chances and showing up, because I have an example of that where I had never done a mural before, but I had set out a goal to do a mural that year. And I was like, I'm just going to lie and tell a company I've done a mural. I did that. I got my mural gig and I did it pretty successfully, and they never knew that I had no experience.
And that's an important point right there, both for your application and for your bio. You got to embellish.
Right.
You got to embellish. You leave stuff out. You fluff things that, may or may not be true. Mm-hmm. So keep going with the imposter syndrome. What else would you recommend?
Yeah, and then another thing I think is a lot of artists have a problem with perfectionism, and I feel like it's almost impossible to be a perfectionist and an artist at the same time, because people who are, I've met like really great artists who they produce things, they don't like it, they rip it up, they throw it away, they discard of it. And to me, that's like crazy to do that. I would never throw away or destroy something that I have made. I just keep going, like keep adding, come back to it, even if it's years later. So I encourage people who have that perfectionist mindset is if you're trying to reach that point of perfectionism, you're never going to actually show your work to the world.
Perfection's an abstract idea that we just made up.
Right,
sure.
Exactly.
It's not a real thing.
Yeah.
And I would add to it, don't compare yourself to other artists.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I feel as a filmmaker, when I was young, trying to get my start with filmmaking, I would compare myself to other directors that I admired.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this director made this movie at this age. I'm nothing. I've done nothing. And it would make me feel like I was never going to do anything. No two, even identical twins are not identical.
Right.
They're living two separate lives. You cannot compare yourself to anyone. I'm glad you brought up the imposter syndrome because I think that's something a lot of artists do deal with, and artists are constantly living in their heads, which they should, but you have to know when to come out, artists.
Definitely.
You can't live there forever.
No.
If you do, you're going to lose your mind.
Yeah.
You're not going to be able to communicate with anyone. You're never going to be a part of art shows or any kind of art crowd. Know when to pull out of the mind. Right?
That's the problem, I feel like, with social media, though, because there should be a fine line between comparing yourself to others and being inspired by others. But social media really just blurs that line a lot, because you're looking at somebody's post, you could say, and of course, you know, sometimes you can admit it to yourself. Sometimes you just be hating a little bit. Like, you can feel like your work is bounds above somebody else's, but they're getting so much more shine. And that makes it a little bit hard for you to want to be inspired by like their work ethic or X, Y, and Z, but you don't even get to see that on social media. You just get to see that somebody popped off for some work that you feel that your work is much better than, and what is there to show for it when you see that you're actually putting in hard work.
Yeah. You know, I love social media. It's an amazing tool, but also I'm tired of social media.
Yes.
I'm a lot of the stuff I do now, I don't post about. Not intentionally. I didn't do it on purpose. It wasn't like a boycott. It was just like, I'm just gonna go live my life, do my thing. You
Live your life in the moment.
Even that artist letter that we got with 100 artists to sign it, not that we didn't talk about that online. We didn't make noise about it online. None of that. And that actually enacted change. And that told me, it was like, social media is a tool, not the only tool. And you know, and especially for younger people, social media can be extremely detrimental.
For sure.
And I don't know any good fix to it. I mean, it's a societal issue, but like not saying we should implement this, but just an interesting thought. We have this, you know, the scroll of doom, right? The endless scroll where you never stop. It just keeps going and going and going. Well, what if social media, you only had like 45 minutes a day? I think you'd be using it a lot differently, right?
Oh,
For sure.
Is it this unfiltered, unlimited access that we just like act like insane freaks when we use it?
Yeah, and I definitely think it's the unlimited access, and it's also like just a tool for people to unleash almost, because they're able to act a certain way or say certain things that they would not do in person.
Right.
And also could be good or bad on both ends too, because I do know some people who are like super antisocial or have the social abilities to put themselves out there, and then that does give them the platform though to have their work shown and be a social person.
Absolutely. There's one specific person that comes to mind. Her name is Sweet Anita. She's a gamer on Twitch, and she has Tourette's really bad, and she just screams out obscenities, and it's made her life very difficult. And she just started gaming and streaming it, and she built this massive following, and she constantly talks about how it's completely changed her life and given her self-confidence, and now she gets to fly all around the world talking in seminars and meeting people and doing things. So yeah, that's a great example of social media for someone that's antisocial. It can be this really great tool.
It can just open you up to the actual world. And then when you get the reception from the world that you don't expect, that means a lot to anybody, for sure.
And I think now we're no longer in the infancy of social media, so it's kind of like settling into what it's going to become. Do you see like any big changes in it moving forward as far as how we use it or our approach to it? Or are we kind of just stuck with how things are for a while yet?
I don't know. I always think that we're done coming out with new social medias, then there's something else that comes out. And nothing has overcame anything like Instagram or Facebook at this point, but I do think that there's still something out there that we haven't created yet that could really cultivate communities and connect people like directly to resources. I feel like I'm still waiting for something like that.
Yeah. You know, and it's almost like we're waiting for like the right person to come around and do something.
Right.
Elon Musk is not the guy.
No.
Unfortunately. There's nothing worse than someone who's unfunny trying to be funny.
Yes.
And that's Elon Musk in a nutshell. He's not funny, and he's desperate to be funny, and because he's not, he has to stoop to the level of the trolls because they're the only ones that will accept him and laugh at his stupid shit. But like, you need to have someone that's not driven by these big corporate machines. Again, Mark Zuckerberg could have been the guy, but then he got swept up in that corporate machine. And now I can't stand on Facebook, which is the one I use the most, but I can't stand on Facebook when I'm scrolling. It's like every fourth post is an ad. You know, like Warren Buffett was once asked, where can you go to not be advertised to? He said, to sleep.
I mean,
Yeah.
even then, is that even possible?
I don't know. Then you didn't hear about this crazy shit where they're like, oh, we want to like start projecting ads on the moon. Like, what?
No,
is-
stop.
Oh, they've been
What?
talking about that on and off for years. You haven't heard about that?
No, I had
Oh
not.
yeah, sorry.
You broke the news.
I totally.
I mean, my mind
Okay.
was pretty much blown when I saw a whole truck. Its whole purpose is just an LED screen in an advertisement.
Yeah.
Just
yeah.
to drive around in busy places.
Yeah.
How?
Everyone's competing for eyes and attention. It's ridiculous. And I'm a big believer that if what you're doing is important enough, people they'll go to it. They'll
Exactly.
seek it out. They will go through the fields of shit to get to the good stuff. But it's like there's just too much now.
Yeah, so I
And
wonder what
yes.
that will do with social media, thinking about that, because I think about that all the time, like ads constantly, like YouTube, I have to watch 3 minutes ads before I can see a random video that I'm just trying to
Can't
look at for
stand it.
2 seconds.
Can't stand
So
it.
Yeah.
I feel like it's going to get to the point where it's just like for elitists, like it's just for the people who are going to want to pay for it, and then it's not going to really have the underground connections that we're trying to develop anyways.
Or
So-
even worse than that is like I go on news websites and there's so many advertisements. I got to close like 3 or 4 pop-ups to actually read the news
read
article.
the article.
It's like I'm
Yeah.
trying to read the news.
Like,
I want to know how bad the government's fucking up today. Can
seriously.
you please stop trying to sell me an Audi?
Like, come on. If you were really like looking at me, you'd realize I couldn't afford that anyways.
Exactly.
Like, come on.
I know. What made you think I could afford any new car?
No. The worst part is that, like, in that situation, you know what I like. You've been tracking my eye movements. You know everything about me. And you're still going to give me this advertisement like I care.
Yeah.
But you know,
Something
I
wanna see.
think these companies believe there's something they're not. They're probably putting in like dance and art and shit like that. It's like, you what? No.
No.
Just because you want to be linked in with hip hop or this or that doesn't mean you are.
You
Right.
made one commercial about it.
You
Calm
can throw
down.
money at a rapper and act like you're a part of the culture now. That's not how it works.
Calm down.
Go write Illmatic and then we'll talk. Right? But you know, I realize now we never actually got to the point how you segued into tufting.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So I feel like
that
it's a great
works.
time to do that.
Amazing. Yeah, definitely. After realizing I'm definitely more of a studio artist, and that was definitely after my Greece experience, saying that I was just taught differently there. The comparison of being in college in the United States, I was taught where, like, okay, for a painting class, for example, I had to stand up for 2 hours and paint. I wasn't allowed to sit down. I had to stand. Breaks were not like...
This was in America?
Yes, this was in America.
Very military like.
Yeah, it really was. It was like, why do I have to stand? I really thought, like, for a while that was
These are
like,
the same people that train cashiers, by the way.
oh yeah,
Oh, for sure. Oh, for sure.
yeah. So I didn't understand why I had to stand up. Like, I really was like convinced that that was like the proper way to paint because that's how I was taught how to do it. And if I was sitting down slouching, like, I'm not gonna produce good work or
If you
something.
don't suffer for your art, it's not really art, Emily.
I guess,
hate
yeah.
that- I hate that shit.
That's why it's called pain.
yeah.
Ting.
Yeah. Oh, clever.
Yeah, and everything that we painted was just this, like, we had to paint the still life right in front of us. Like, we weren't given any creative opportunity. But then when I was in Greece, and specifically at an art school with professors who were from all around the world and had all different types of experiences, we would do some still lives so they can understand, like, what our technical range was. Like, all right, let's see how well you can draw, because everyone was coming from different levels. So I understood that, and I understand why technicality is important in art. But then after she learned, you know, what our skills were, she immediately was like, okay, now distort it. Like, look at the same image that you're looking at and use your creativity to distort that same image. And so we were all, like, looking at the same still life, and 20 of us came up with a completely different piece at the end of it. And to me, that's
awesome.
just so much more interesting. And I
For
was
sure.
able to actually develop a style rather than being forced to try to do something realistic, which I never enjoyed trying to paint realistic to begin with.
I'm a big supporter and believer in that pretty much anyone can learn technique, but creativity, you kind of either have it or you don't.
Yeah.
I think anyone can be creative to a certain extent, but you can really look at someone's work and see there's something real with this person, and they might not have proper technique yet, but that can be learned and added in.
Definitely.
I mean, that's what outsider art is. It's someone that has his heart to them, but doesn't have traditional training and technique.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting, like our duality, because I have that, I have the technique. I was brought up learning how to do it, but it also was just coming from the creative drive. And then while me and David started dating, like he would see, my processes and realizing like I just get some new material and just start creating something. And he wanted to see if he can do that. And I encouraged it. And now he's creating his own separate pieces that are completely standalone art pieces. And he's really only been at it for like 2 years now. So
yeah, it's been a really interesting process.
Not what you expected, huh?
No, not at all. Of so-and-so becoming an artist. I've always
you can own that shit. You can say it. Don't. You're an artist, bro.
I am an artist. I
think
artist
it's funny
now.
too, because before we did rugs, when I was just like doing the third Thursday, like setting up with my table and my paintings, and it would be me and him standing behind it, people would go up to him and be like, "Oh, you're the artist." They would think he was always the artist, and
it's like always a dominant person in a relationship.
Yeah.
To the outsider's appearance, at least.
Mm-hmm.
I like the way my friend put it. He said, as soon as I had the double nose ring, my artist archetype was unlocked. And basically I was destined for it.
He's got a point. Yeah, I see it now.
Also that, and just the fact that he was at that time a lot more comfortable with just talking to people, like coming up and having the personality to just be like super personable. And where I had that, I more so had to force it. But because of my new current job that I have, I did develop that ability to just like talk to anybody.
Well, and I think too, what makes you more comfortable with the vending setup, at least, is the vendors working together. Mm-hmm. Like it's not like a gallery showing where you're free to walk around the room. You're kind of stuck at your table.
Yeah.
Which in a way forces you to speak to your neighbor. That's one of the things I love about vending. It forces artists to actually talk to each other. Because it's going to be super weird. It's like, all right, this is the third week in a row. I'm vending with this artist right next, and we haven't said anything. Eventually, you just either have a complete psychotic breakdown about not talking to this person, or you become buddies, right?
Oh, yeah, definitely. That is actually where I did meet a few people who I now am familiar with from the gallery, is definitely from those third Thursdays where we all got together and was seeing the same familiar faces.
Awesome. Mm-hmm. That's so great to hear. I always love the stories of when the events or things we did actually worked.
Right.
Because it's a lot of work. A ton of energy and time goes into making these things happen, which unfortunately this year we weren't able to do the third Thursday art market because of the powers that be in the city just made it too damn hard, and they're used to seeing me eat shit year after year, and it's like, you know what? No, it's going to be on my terms now. So I think they were shocked.
And it was, because now you did the artist takeover, and I feel like that was even more beneficial.
Absolutely. And that was not something we planned. It was like, you know what? We're tired of this. We're going to have an artist meetup, and we're going to call it the Takeover because we want to take over Allentown. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But it's not about Allentown. We want artists to take over the world.
Right.
Because in my opinion, how things are going, shit is not working. It's not. Let us artists have a shot. The executives already had their shot and they screwed it up. Let us have our chance of either getting it right or screwing it up. Even if we screw it up, it's going to be a hell of a lot more fun, and everyone's invited to the party.
Yeah, that's very true.
After every shitty era in history, the art after has been monumental. It's meant everything to everybody. Those are the century statement pieces, are from the shittiest times.
Yeah, and how history was recorded.
That's a good point, yeah. But not to change its subject, I'm still trying to figure out how did you, where did you discover Tufting?
Okay, so getting back to that again. I
like when conversations bounce around, though. It's totally cool.
Oh yeah, this is how
I'm not trying to lasso this in. I want to see where it goes.
Tufting, it's definitely been a newer process. I think within the past 4 years
But how did you first discover it? Did you see it somewhere? Did you already know about it?
My very first experience with it, I'm not going to lie, I think it was through TikTok. During the pandemic, people were picking up all these random new hobbies, and tufting became accessible to people because it was a lot more expensive before. They weren't manufacturing the tools that you needed in bulk in order to make it accessible to people until COVID time.
So people ran out of shit to buy on Amazon, so they started buying that stuff.
Yes.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Basically.
Cool.
And I just saw a bunch of people, just doing that like in their like bedroom, which definitely I wouldn't recommend doing that because there's a lot of little microfibers that you inhale.
Especially if you got animals, right?
Yeah, that as
sure.
well. Yeah, a lot of people are doing that. Don't recommend that part. But I saw a lot of people doing it. And honestly, I was just like, well, I just keep seeing the same Pokemon or like anime or like
just
Again,
basic
technique
things.
and no creativity.
Yes, that's exactly what it
yes.
was. Like, still, I would still argue there's people who have way better technique than we do, but our creative aspect definitely surpasses because we're making things that are from our own original designs or collabing with other artists. So these are pieces that no one has seen before. And
Truly one of one.
Yeah,
all we
no,
want.
no, talk about that because I love the fact that you're working with other artists on this. It's something that I've never seen before.
yeah, so that's actually why I got the tufting gun to begin with, is because while I was making a bunch of paintings, I was like, yeah, I have the technical skill, but my favorite part is getting abstract and getting crazy with different colors and textures. And I was like, yeah, let me throw in a texture that I haven't worked with before. And since I saw the process, I was like, oh, I could definitely do that. I'll figure it out. And that's kind of what I did. The first time even building something by myself with a hammer and nails was my tufting frame. I just got it in a package, was like, all right, let's figure it out. And the whole process was me just doing something for the very first time. But I'm actually someone who really does embrace change, and where a lot of people are like, oh, something new, I don't know how to do that, I'm going to run away from it. I'm like, yeah, let's learn something new.
You're more adventurous than other people, though.
Yeah.
That's a big reason why.
Definitely, I would say. And I feel like that is being an artist too, wanting to figure out figuring something out. I feel like I'm always...
A lot of people don't go to college. You went to college in another country.
yeah, very true.
Exactly.
Yeah, so I would definitely, and that was like a program where no one from my school had ever gone before. I went not knowing a single person, so...
They were all trying to be like, oh, why do you want to go to Greece?
So
What's
many
even
people
over there?
Yeah, that's actually a big point. So many people, like, that was a really good example of knowing, like, wow, just because someone doesn't know about something, they think that they know about something. So I was
Yes.
having that happen so often. Like, that was from family members to students to professors.
Where do they think you should have gone instead?
Well, someone said to me, this was actually the advisor that was trying to get me into an abroad school. I told him I didn't like the school I was going to because it was in such a small city, and I felt even isolated in such a small town because I didn't really relate to the people going there. It wasn't an art school at the end of the day, so I didn't have much to relate to in the people. And he was like, well, then why would you want to go to an island with only 6,000 people then? I'm like, it's an island? I can,
In the Mediterranean?
yeah, they set up and get to paint the islands and the churches and the beautiful historical things.
And with it being that small amount of people, they know what true community is.
Yeah.
Showing unconditional love just because, like, I don't know you, but I love you until you fuck up, basically.
Yeah, very cultural in that sense.
Oh, yeah. Going back 3 years after, I still saw people there who I knew. And I thought after COVID that we were going to go there and I was going to be disappointed that all the businesses got shut down. No, everyone still owned the businesses. It was the same workers, all the same people.
That's because that community made sure that things were taken care of.
Yeah,
Exactly.
They actually are thriving. They're doing way better than they were when I was first there in 2019.
That's both exhilarating to hear and depressing at the same time because it's not what we have here.
Right.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, everyone keeps coming up to me. We just had an artist meetup last week, and there were some artists that were coming up to me like, what is going on? We have more vacant storefronts now than we did a couple years ago.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Things aren't working. I don't know what to say. But also going to Greece, what's really cool about that is as an artist, I think it's really important to put yourself in strange environments.
Yeah.
For sure.
Just for contrast. Like I feel more often than not, we understand things because of the contrast.
Right.
Yes.
You know, like I'm a big supporter of space exploration. Let's do that shit up. How is it already taking this long? We haven't been to the moon in my lifetime. Come
You
on.
kidding me?
Come
Right.
on. Come
Yeah.
on. Let's
Right.
go. Right. Like then you hear these people saying, oh, well, why should we go to space? Why should we go to another planet so we can fuck that planet up too? No, dude, it's because discovering and walking on another planet will help us understand our own even better.
Yes.
Exactly.
Right? You're the caveman that voted not to leave the cave.
Ooh.
Damn.
So let us do our thing here. we're curious creatures. We need to go out and wander and explore, no matter how far that may be.
And gaining perspective. That's really what it is.
So I wanna talk more about these artist collaborations you're doing because I think that's like such a key of what we do here at our space. So tell me about some of the artists you've been working with.
Yeah. So during, I think it was just this last February, we had met Tyler, who is an artist here, and They just saw like the rugs that we were making, and we were looking at their work and seeing all the little intricate
Line
twists
work.
and turns and the line work. And we were like, oh, this could easily translate into a rug. And I don't even remember who started what first, but
I
we
think
eventually came together.
We just had a random conversation, and then we said, okay, pull up to the studio sometime.
Yeah.
Sounds very organic.
It was
And that's all it
extremely
had to be.
organic. And Tyler is someone who we were saying, oh, just show up. Just showed up. Just kept
showed
showing up.
Super important.
Day after day at the studio. We ended up hanging out for like solid 2 weeks straight, and now they're in our space all the time. We're in their space all the time.
Wow.
And yeah, we planning to make another rug very soon.
Yeah, and it seems like now you're branching out and doing more artist collabs.
Oh yeah. And then another artist that we had known prior was Jay, also, who is
Jay Etchy.
yes, part of the
Jay
first
Etchy.
episode
Yeah,
on this podcast
Yeah.
and founder of the Alternative Gallery.
that's right.
They also saw our abilities with Tyler's rug, and they also have line work, and chose something super simple, which I remember saying, we can do anything, get crazy with the colors or the lines or whatever. And they're like, no, I want this sign. And then after doing it, we were like, oh yeah, we could have went crazy with it. Like we could have went like way bigger. But it was actually a challenge for me to do Jay's rug because I was trying to replicate their hand marking with the actual sketchiness of the lines. And so that was something I wanted to do when I got the tufting gun. I didn't want to just, because mainly we project our designs, like we'll draw something, project it, and then be able to like outline it perfectly. This one I was like, I'm just going to do a real rough sketch and go back and forth looking kind of like very early on where I would go back looking at the coloring book to just decide how to draw something. I was doing the same thing with tufting. I was looking at the picture, tufting a line, looking back at the picture, tufting a line. And then I was able to actually get like a very clear sketchiness and replicate their actual drawing.
So you figured out your process early on.
Very early on.
You didn't
Yeah.
realize it. That's some foundational stuff you probably weren't aware of, huh?
Yeah. Had a little epiphany right there.
So what other projects do you have coming up? Anything specific?
Well,
get a whole
actually,
bunch.
yeah, we definitely do. There's so much to do with tufting. That's what I like. It's very versatile. So we're doing like pieces of furniture, mirrors. Now that we're in the process of moving, we're finding furniture. We're like, oh, this would be so great to add a little, just
a little bit.
Yeah,
just a little bit on the
flair.
top.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But really what we're focusing on is two of my pieces that I wanted to do since we got the tufting gun. But after realizing that I was able to achieve what I was trying to achieve with Jay's rug, the actual sketchiness of the lines, then I was like, all right, I feel like I have the ability and understanding of tufting to translate one of my paintings into a tufted piece. So now that's what we're working on, and it is definitely a challenge.
We wanted to do it for so long with one of the pieces. It's Goblin Boy. There's been many a prints, many a
Yeah, it's
taken
probably
to
my
events.
most, what would you say, just like popular piece.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was a whole era where Emily just based off of doing Goblin Boy on a random COVID Sunday, she started making people into goblins. They'd send in their pictures. She would commission it, and she'd make them into their own little goblin versions, put it on shirts, put it on cups, put it on anything. And that's why I'm really glad that we're getting to actually finally do this in tufting.
And I got to make some prints of that for you too.
Yeah.
Here
Oh,
at a
yeah.
print show.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome.
Putting it all together, like all of our skills now, because for a while we did not have the confidence to do it, because if we were going to do it, we wanted to make sure that we were at the proficient skill level to do it correctly or to the best of our ability at that time. And now I feel like with everything going on, I think we're there.
Yeah, and it's kind of full circle with the Cocktails and Collecting event, because that was 2 years ago now, and that was my first time just ever vending, like, period.
Interesting. That's right. I actually forgot that. So yeah, Emily and David are part of an event this weekend at the Allentown Art Museum here in the city of Allentown called Cocktails and Collecting. They do it every year. And starting 2 years ago, they were opening it up to some less traditional forms of art. So I invited a handful of artists in the Alternative Gallery, Emily being one of them, with some of your paintings and illustrations. This is, I think, really before you got into tufting, or at least you were focusing on it. And that's right. So that was your first time showing art?
Yeah, that was my first time actually being at a vending like opportunity, and Goblin Boy was there. That painting was there. And now we're working on the rug version to be in the show, this upcoming show.
Yeah, which is this weekend, Saturday, October 7th and Sunday, October 8th. 6 to 9 p.m. on Saturday. That's a ticketed event on Saturday. That's when all the collectors and stuff come out. And they have a few dozen artists are out there, a lot of traditional mediums, a handful of artists in the alternative gallery will be there. And this time you'll have your own booth, a dedicated booth,
Yes,
not just sharing one this time, not a guest artist, but moving on up in the world.
Oh, yeah.
And then also Sunday, October 8th, 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. That is free for all. Emily will be there both days, so make sure you go out there and say hello if you're around and able to come out. Again, it's free at the Allentown Art Museum. What are you looking forward to most at this Cocktails and Collecting?
I'm just looking forward to seeing how that first day is, just because we didn't get to experience that the first time. The actual ticketed event, I feel like that's just something different because it's people there who have the mindset to actually want to purchase the art and are interested in the art itself, and not just like they came across an event and they're just walking around taking a look.
That's a great point. I forgot you were just there one day last year, and tickets are $100 a piece.
Right.
So people who are there, they're serious about art.
They want to be there.
Or at least serious about being seen at art events.
Exactly.
Sure.
But take advantage of that too.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
That's a connection. That's a connection.
Don't forget them business cards.
Yeah, then we really need to upload that.
That's right. I have to print those. Huh? I forgot about that.
Yeah. I got to
Send me that.
Okay.
I got you.
Tonight.
Tonight?
Right
Awesome.
after this.
Right after this.
Yeah.
And we'll get some business cards for you because you're hopefully going to run out no matter how many I print for you.
Oh, yeah.
For sure.
That's the goal.
Because it should be nice and packed there and happening. That's the thing. Like, Art Museum, they do this event, which is great, but I don't know that they do anything else like this all year long.
Right.
And it's not that we're doing things wrong in the city. There just isn't enough of them.
Right.
Like we have a few art events, but it's just not enough.
There is opportunity for sure, but if you don't do the connecting to the right people or figuring out when this event is until it's
Already
a
passed.
day before,
Yeah.
then
That has happened to us.
how can you prosper in this area?
Yeah. And anyone that's setting up art events, just a little piece of advice, don't chase trends. Just support the things you think are cool, even if they're not cool in that moment. Because I guarantee there's other artists out there who are looking for that aren't getting support. And the artists who need support the most are the ones whose medium aren't currently trendy.
Yeah.
Yes.
Things go in cycles. So right now, there's probably not a lot of tufting art events you can go to. So you need what you can get, but I'm sure you would take part. What other events do you do?
Well, what was the last event that we did? We do some of the local stuff in the area, like when it comes to the local like skate brands and stuff, like 12th Market events and
You did the
Home base.
the
The home
garden,
base.
the home base show at the beginning of the year. Garden, the sewer parade. That was a huge show.
That was a huge one.
that was actually where we met Tyler.
And
stuff.
you raffled off an original.
Yes, we did live tufting. We
the first
definitely want to
time.
do some more of that. That
Yeah.
was an interesting thing because people getting to see us in our element working while we're doing it. I feel like that definitely helped people want to support us because they're seeing the effort that we're putting into it.
Yeah, it's giving people the perspective of the actual hard work that it takes to put into something like that.
Right.
Yeah, I think people in general, artists or non-artists, they just love seeing things
Live.
get done. And that was how we broke down the main barrier here in the city of Allentown with street art. Before we did Arts Fest in 2014, the city was like, nope, every street artist is a criminal, no matter what. And we had to have these artists paint live for the city and families to see. And be like,
understand.
oh, wait, no, this is just an artist
Yeah.
doing their thing. Exactly. Give them legal walls, pay them to do their art. You're wasting resources by, you're fighting it the wrong way at least.
Right.
There's a different way to approach this. Imagine if tufting was the same way. You just go like leave rugs illegally everywhere.
People just snatch them up because
Yeah.
definitely.
Well, free stuff. People love free stuff.
Yeah.
That's very true.
Yeah, I was going to say it's actually like a good thing and a bad thing that we're the only people really doing tufting in the area, because I feel like so far it's only really been a good thing because we get to teach people what it is. They're like, oh, I've never seen that before. And
It's
at
the
every
wow factor.
Yeah, at every vending event we've been at so far, there's not been anyone that has had that medium.
You're
Yeah.
going to stand out a lot at this Cocktails and Collecting at the Art Museum because even though there's several dozen artists, there's not going to be anything like it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Which is a big reason when I told the Art Museum that was one of the artists I was bringing with, they were like, whoa, this is super cool because who else is going to have rugs? Handmade,
Exactly.
tufted rugs.
I think Jay's going to bring the piece that we did with
Mm-hmm.
them. So then they're going to be able to see like, okay, I can commission them to do my work in this medium. We were able to, like during the last garden event, that's what people were seeing. They were like, oh, like my design could be in that.
That's why even in the introduction, I wanted to push that, because even if that wasn't something that you were necessarily focusing on, which I didn't ask you if you were, it's something that I saw you doing already. And I thought, damn, this has endless potential.
Yes.
Everybody has to find their own niche. And I feel like this is something that we're really excited to try and make our niche, because we want to be in the artist community. We want to help everybody in our community. We want everybody to eat. So why not bring everybody's art to a new form, to the 3D world, and then we just both share the commission, do whatever, and we both make money.
Hell yeah. You know, and I think, you know, too, artists, they often will get stuck only working with artists in a similar medium.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I'm a painter. If I want to collaborate with someone, it has to be another painter. Or I'm a musician. This, you can bring a musician who has a graphic designer friend, and the three of you, the four of you actually work together on a piece. I mean, I'm talking to you guys about even doing your own take on the Art Bazaar logo.
Exactly.
And,
Yeah.
I mean, I love that. I just think that's so amazing. And like, art shouldn't just be pigeonholed into one kind of thing. It's all about like trying stuff. The second you try, like, there's infinite possibilities out there. We can't act like we've tried everything already.
Yeah.
What are you most looking forward to or hoping to see happen in your future as an artist?
Yeah, that's a big question too. I feel like there was a point in time where I did solely only focus on art and think, okay, this is the only thing for me and what I'm good at. But what I realized through art is that what I enjoy the most is the connecting with people and learning other people's stories and how they got to get good at the thing that they're good at. So I've kind of transitioned into a different career. I have a position at a community center and I'm community coordinator. So I get to coordinate all the events and including the art. And that's something I wanted to make a point on. I run like our unofficial art therapy groups. And this is with people who are in a very tough spot in life, whether it's mentally, financially, wherever it may be, developmentally. And I get people together of all different ages and throw out material and give them a very vague description of what to create, and everyone comes up with something completely different. And my very first class, we did a painting technique, and this one woman who's like in her later 60s, she now does it all the time on her own. She buys her own supplies for it, and it was just took that one circle I did where I showed a very easy technique for people who aren't super able, you know, with their hands. All you have to do is fold a piece of paper with some paint on it. And she loved the process and made, I'm not even kidding you, like 100 different paintings.
Wow.
Yeah.
You brought a new artist into existence. here.
Definitely. Yeah.
Good
yeah.
for you.
Yeah.
Emily is a very influential person. I can say that from firsthand experience, watching Emily's process and just the light that Emily gives to creativity.
Well, I feel like that's because it's like where my start was. I really did make that a point, especially getting into college, realizing, oh, if the teachers didn't support me or my family didn't support me, I don't think I would have had the confidence to be in the position I'm at. And I've grown so much style-wise and creativity-wise only because I believed that I could. And I'm a firm believer in how powerful our minds are. So if you tell yourself, oh, I can't do art, like I hear all the time, I can't even draw a stick figure. It's like, well, yes, you can. And I promise you can draw even more than that if you just sat down with me and we can do it. You can do it. I feel like it's because of that and my journey and being encouraged in art that I just do it with other people, because like you were saying, like there are people who are born with like a certain artistic eye, but I do believe that everyone has a sense of creativity. You just have to find what medium you like working with.
Right. Absolutely. And you know, I just thought of something. I remember early on here, you had more friends with you and you intended for those friends to be collaborators with your work as they told you they were going to be. And I remember the story that you told me the one time, how you stopped hanging out with a lot of people because they just weren't serious about what they were doing. And you were. And it wasn't that you were just pushing them aside because they weren't serious, but their lack of being serious was actually keeping you from making work when they were around.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
I love that commitment.
Yeah.
And good for you for doing that. Again, a lot of people would just be like, they're my friends. I know they're annoying, but I don't want to be a dick. I don't want to be rude. And they'll just put up with it.
Yeah.
And now look how much more work you do now, because it's
Exactly.
only people I see in your studio are serious about making art.
Yep.
Outside of an event or like a showing, that's how it should be.
Right.
I feel.
Yeah, that's definitely something that has changed. I didn't realize how much getting my own solo space would really amp up my productivity and just
Sure.
like establishment as an artist. I feel like before I actually had the space, I was just like, yeah, I just graduated, with this art degree, so I'm an artist. But I didn't really like fully do it in my day to day or think that I was qualified to call myself an artist because maybe I didn't have it in my day-to-day practices. But since getting the solo space and having different people come in and out and seeing, certain people come in and being inspired by just having that own space or that dedicated space. I have friends who leave their work in my space because they know that they're going to be more motivated to come back here and to be in the creative energy with other people. And we all end up getting stuff done together.
The alternative gallery is a special place for creativity for sure. It's birthed a whole bunch of artists.
Oh, yes.
I already know.
I really appreciate that. And, it's something that we want to help artists. I don't want to have the only type of thing like that.
Right.
I think we really do have a good thing here. And I want to share that.
Yeah.
And that's a big reason why we try to give out all the information possible, which is why we're doing this. Because I want artists to realize you're not on your own. I don't care if you're
Exactly.
in Wyoming. We can collaborate. We can make this happen together.
Oh, yeah.
For sure.
And artists, we need each other. Now, do you think only certain types of artists can work from home? Do you think that it's better for artists to have a studio outside of their... I personally believe it's better for most artists to get the hell out of home and have treat it like work in that sense. What do you feel about that?
You have to separate your spaces to truly use them to the fullest potential. Like your home space, if you want your home space to be the place where you feel at peace of mind and that nothing is wrong in the world or whatever, or you can be entertained without having to have the constant thoughts of what you need or want to do, then I feel like separating them is your best option.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think you would agree, definitely separating them, because the reason why I even looked into getting a studio space is because I kind of moved in to David's space or his house and his room when I was in transition of moving out of college and back home during COVID. And there was a point where I was like taking clothes out of his closet to hang up clothes that I was printing on. And I was like, yeah, this is getting a little out of hand. We might need to expand the space. So that's actually what inspired me to start looking, because we were running out of room in our room.
Interesting. Makes sense. Now I'm curious, when you're working on a project you're really motivated by and excited about, when you go home, are you still thinking about working on that piece?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
I
for
feel
sure.
like, especially with this event coming up, we've been constantly being like, we got to be in the studio. We got to get to the
Now,
studio.
is it a bad thing that your studio isn't at your home, or is it good?
No, it's definitely
I
good
think
because
it's
we have
good.
to block out the time.
Yeah. I have to make a
great.
schedule. I have to know when I'm going to be here so that I'm not messing up my other plans for my real life that I have to live, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we want to immerse ourselves in the things that make us happy and the things that we love. But, I mean, at the end of the day, everything within reason, right? Like there's a balance to all things. And I think us as artists, like we become obsessive about our work because it's a big part of us. And you can't, being a workaholic it's not a good thing. It's just not. And that's I think a very important point that a lot of artists need to know. It's okay to not feel like you got as much done that day at the studio that you wanted to, and just go home. Even if it's in the back of your mind, just try to enjoy the time with your family.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that forceful separation in that way actually creates a spark for when you do get in that studio next time.
Yeah.
Right.
Right? Because I like to ask artists that, because I know a lot of artists, not a lot, but I've talked to artists who said they prefer to have their space at their house. But I think for the average artist, that's probably not the best approach.
Yeah,
Now,
unless you
well-
have an entire space dedicated. But
Right.
But even that, like say you have that, then you can't separate. You just go right downstairs when you're working in your studio, right?
Yeah,
True.
yeah.
Sometimes it's better to have it offsite.
Yeah. I definitely think so.
I know that in many ways you're still just getting started, Emily, but I'm wondering if you have any advice for artists who are just getting their start. Since you've recently progressed a few levels with your work, a lot of what you went through is probably very fresh to you. And I'm wondering if there's any lessons in there or advice you'd like to share.
Even just like circling back to my first time vending was at the Allentown Art Museum. I think that's kind of crazy because most people's first time vending could just be like anywhere, just showing up for free. And the fact that mine was at my city's museum was kind of crazy to me. And that was all due, again, just because I showed up. And I feel like I proved that to you very early on, that I'm someone who says what they're going to do. And even if I can't to like my full capability, I'll at least be there and let it known what I can do. So again, I just think showing up is the biggest thing. I tell everybody that. Even my friends who have, I have a friend who hasn't drawn in like 2 years, and they randomly decided to start drawing again the other day. And I told them that doesn't not make you an artist just because you didn't draw for 2 years.
It's never too late.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Like you're still an artist. All the things you made before, during, and now, however much time and space that you need to get back into it is all that it takes. So yeah, don't worry too much or get too focused on how often you are creating art. Just make sure that you are taking that time and space to create and appreciate the time that you do set aside for yourself.
It's great. And no, you absolutely did prove yourself to me very early on. I was impressed by how serious you were. And I mean, I've worked with all kinds of artists, and unfortunately, a lot of people just aren't serious. And it's disappointing to me because I see amazing talent going wasted in some cases. And if I can minimize wasted potential and talent, that's my job is successful, I feel. You're not going to completely eradicate it from the world.
Yes.
Do you have any advice for non-artists about maybe ways they can help support the arts in bigger ways, even if it's not just buying artwork? That's an obvious one, but I'm curious how anyone can help someone like you, even if they don't have the money or the understanding of the arts.
Like we were saying,
Free to like and comment.
that's a fact. Social media, it's the easiest thing to like, comment, and just, if you like something, show it to the people that you like.
Like let them know that. Like I feel like
Exactly.
it's so easy. If I do spend 5 minutes on social media, I'm liking things, and I'm not just saying the comment in my head, I'm typing it out. And so many times I'm seeing really good artists just getting scrolled by and nothing's being said under their post, even though it's a really great piece that deserves to be recognized. And it's so easy to say something. So I feel like that's such an easy thing to do. If you actually like something, share it, like it, tell the person that, even if you just separately message that person and tell them how much that you liked that piece, that's going to go so much further for them.
Yeah, that message could not only change your day, but maybe encourage them to keep going if they had any doubts.
Yeah.
Oh, I have a quote. Let me find it.
Oh, I like quotes. Go ahead.
It is Ghostface Killah
All right.
on art. Now, it's a little bit explicit, but I don't give a fuck if you don't know what I'm talking about. This is art. When you see a painting on the wall and it looks bugged out because you don't know what the fuck he thinking, because he ain't got no benches, no trees there, it's just a splash. The person that did that knows what the fuck it is. And that's it. Sometimes I feel like people who don't actually do art try and have too many opinions on art that you did not produce, or you don't know the process of how they got to that piece. So I feel like sometimes it's as simple as saying it's not for you, but it's still beautiful. Everything's still beautiful at the end of the day.
Absolutely. And thanks for the Ghostface quote, man. I mean, Wu-Tang is near and dear to me, man. Tony Stark's.
Forever.
I think that's a common trend with people, not just with art, but things in general. If you don't like it or you disagree with it, don't understand it, it's not just you're trying to put your opinion out there. It's almost like people go to this extreme where they try to like eradicate it from existence.
Yes.
It's like, is it harmful to society? No, then shut the fuck up.
Right.
I saw a post. It said there was a whole comment section under a bean soup recipe, and people were commenting under it. But what if I don't like beans? Then the soup is not for you.
Oh my god, that is a great metaphor. Bean soup.
Well, if I don't like beans.
You need to do a can of beans for a rug now.
Yes. Okay, we got it.
That's amazing.
Oh
So
my
are there,
gosh.
since now you've been a part of the Alternative Gallery now for 3 years, you've seen the weird times, the wild times, and now we're all kind of growing in this new direction together, which feels amazing to me. What do you hope the future is for our shared endeavor here?
I just hope that we continue to grow and to create artists, because David is somebody here who has been an artist that was created out of this building, and our inspiration that we get from just being in this space. So introducing more people to it and letting people know that real amazing, good, artistic, creative things exist in Allentown.
And that community is not a bad thing, even in anything. It doesn't have to be competition. And that's what we've been a lot of preconditioned to just believe everything's a competition
It's
between
the capitalist
us.
mindset.
Exactly. But just being in here has showed me that we can all be a community and make real things, real tangible things happen. So the more minds we have on it, the more new artists that we inspire, the better.
And just show up and bring your two hands.
That's it.
That's right. So you heard them. Show up, try some stuff, be a part of the community, and we'll get this done together.
Definitely.
Bang.
Emily and David, thank you both so much for that. It was a great chat. I loved it.
Yeah, that was awesome.
So, and everyone out there listening, make sure you get out to the Cocktails and Collecting event this weekend at the Allentown Art Museum if you're able to make it. And either way, you better make sure to check out Emily and David's work on Instagram, Rugged_Imperfections. That's that shift, and that's the button next to the 0 for those with a normal keyboard. Rugged_Imperfections. And I imagine you are open to people talking to you and putting orders for
sure
collaborations and anything like that. Right?
Just reach out to us any way that you seem fit. Email, DM us, and we'll have a conversation and make your creation possible.
Yeah, let us bring your creation to the 3D world.
And next time we have an open house, Emily and David will be here with their studio open. You can come check out the stuff in person in addition to Cocktails and Collecting this week. Emily and David, thank you again, and it was amazing chat. Can't wait to see what you got this weekend for us.
Yes, I'm very excited. Finally, happy one of our conversations got recorded.
Finally, right? I told you it was going to happen. I'll see you guys this weekend.
All right, see you. Thank you.
And see everyone else next time on Art Bazaar.